Alright, so we've got VirtualBox already installed. Everything from here on out should be the same, even though I'm running Linux Mint, but it should be the same on Mac. So next thing you're going to want to do is download the actual Linux Mint ISO file. So this is the linuxmint.com website. Go to download. There's different versions you can use. Cinnamon is the one that I like, but there's other ones for different specs or kind of a slightly different look. But we're just going to go with Cinnamon. So click on download. Click on something close by to you, and the ISO should start coming in. Okay, so VirtualBox is now installed. Go ahead and run the program. If it's the first time you're using it, this should be empty. I already have a Windows 7 virtual machine, but we're going to make a new one. So we'll call this Linux Mint. Linux Mint is based off of Ubuntu, so the software has figured that out, and that's why it's put that in the version name. Just go ahead and click Next. This is where we choose how much of our system RAM we want to dedicate to our virtual machine. Usually 4 gigabytes should be good just for this testing purpose. Keep that there. Virtual disk image is good. We'll go with a fixed size here. The only thing to note is that Linux Mint takes about 15 or 16 gigabytes of space just for the basic install. So make sure you choose more than that. 20 gigs is fine. Again, we're just testing here, so not important. Okay, so the machine is basically ready to go. We are just going to tweak a few settings. We've already assigned the 4 gigs of RAM. I'm going to give the CPU an extra core just to speed things up a little bit. You can choose how many of your CPU cores you want to dedicate to the virtual machine right here. And I'm going to give it a little bit more video RAM. I don't think this matters, but I'm just going to boost it up a little bit. The scale factor here, when the window does open in a minute, if it looks too small on your screen, you can move this slide bar a little bit and make the screen larger. So I think about 120 is probably good. And then the last thing is to put the ISO file into the CD drive. So the ISO again is just the virtual CD, and we're going to put it in the virtual CD drive. So click here. This is where you need to know where you've saved it. It may figure it out automatically. If not, you would choose this and go to, say, your downloads folder and put the Linux Mint ISO in there. So now it's going to boot off of that. All right, and we're ready to go ahead and boot things up. So click Start. And we've booted off the ISO, and we're going to choose Start Linux Mint. And it's now booting off of the virtual CD. These are just informing you that it's using your keyboard and mouse for the virtual machine. It's currently booting. And there we go. So now we are running just off of the CD, and this is enough for you to test things out at this point. You can click around, see what kind of apps and things it comes with. So we just heard the audio, so we know the sound is working. We can check to make sure the internet's working. So we're online, so it's figured out all the hardware, it's figured out our network. It's basically good to go at this point, and the next step would be to actually install it into the virtual machine. So to do the install part, we just click on Install Linux Mint. And again, this is not going to do anything to your actual computer. This all happens inside of the VirtualBox program. Again, this will not affect any of the files on your actual computer. This is all inside the virtual machine. Just call it test. Okay, the installation has begun. Gives you some information about the operating system here. Okay, the installation is complete, but we are still running off of our virtual CD. So we can go ahead and close that. And at this point you can shut it down. There's two ways. You can actually go to here and say shut down, or you could just click the X in the corner. We'll close this and just power off. So now we've got a Linux Mint virtual machine. It's installed on a virtual hard drive, and to start it up as if you were just starting a brand new computer, just click on Start, and we'll go through the steps to log in for the first time. Okay, we're booted into an actual virtual Linux Mint at this point. I recommend clicking on First Steps and having a look through here. Like any new install, there's always going to be updates to do. You don't actually have to do that because this is all just a virtual environment. So if anything went wrong with it, you could just start over from scratch. But at this point, just play around and check things out and have some fun.